There is something that baffles me, and I'm sure it probably baffles you too, is the fact that despite us saying we are now in a woke generation, 21st century, we still have issues of bad mother in laws. It's like the baton keep being exchanged from one generation to another. You would see someone who complained about her mother in law 30, 40 years back being a terrible mother in law today to her daughter in laws. But then, if you look at it very well, you just know that it's something you will just have to put up with because it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Haritha and my kunya is Muslim. Welcome to my channel. Nothing really tells about who is going to become a terrible mother-in-law tomorrow and who wouldn't be. But certain things, certain arrows point towards the direction of a likelihood of becoming a terrible mother-in-law in future. Anyway, before we go further than this, I actually have a goal to hit certain number of subscribers before the end of November, inshallah. And that is not going to be possible without your support. Number one is the kind of sister-in-law you are today. It's not rocket science. If at the sister-in-law level you're already terrible, I pity your daughter-in-laws because there is more possession over one's child than over one's sibling. If you already at the sister-in-law level are terrible to your sister-in-law, your brother's wife, you are that person who is quick to, fault your sister's wife. You are that person who is quick to shut her up when she complains of anything. You are that person who is quick to say, oh, it's my brother is the innocent one and she is the terrible one. You don't listen. You don't even want to hear her out. No, she is the terrible one. She is the one another. She is the one this and that. You can only up your game when you become a mother-in-law. So being a terrible sister-in-law today increases your chances or your probability of becoming a terrible mother-in-law tomorrow. It's not even rocket science. Number two are those women who didn't have a marriage. I mean, they were married, there was a wedding, but they were not really married in the sense that they only stayed in that marriage because of their kids. The marriage was so toxic and unhealthy, but because of what people would say, they chose to stay, then make their children the fuel for staying, the reason for staying. Now, of these people become divided into two categories. Some raise their children, stay for their kids just to see that their kids turn out well. And that is just it. Then there is another group, which happens to be the majority of those who stay and see those children as investment and as a compensation for what they are going through in their husband's house. So these people's mindset is that these children will somehow grow tomorrow to compensate for what their father had done to her. They somehow also think that they don't have a space now in their husband's house, but somehow when these kids are grown, they would have a space in their children's life, in their children's houses. These kind of people, when they are sons, it's usually mostly sons because for their daughters, I think an average African mother or an average mother would not want to, inconvenience her daughter in her husband's house because she knows that the husband of her daughter, which is her son-in-law, is financially responsible for the home and she wouldn't want to be a liability to the son-in-law. But it's very easy for a lot of women to choose to inconvenience their daughter-in-laws because to them, it's my son's house. He's the one paying the bill. So it's not really inconvenience in this case. And I stayed in my toxic marriage because of these kids. I'm entitled to it. So staying in a toxic marriage for this group of people build a certain unhealthy and very toxic entitlement in them. And they feel entitled to their sons. In which case, they are their sons' first wives. So they're going to be in your space. They're going to want to control things. They're going to, have opinion about everything. If possible, they want to control every affair of your home. And should you now have issues with this son, what they are saying is not just that, oh, you have issues with my son. They are saying it as, oh, you have issues with my world. This is basically the people I have lived for. Yes, They stopped themselves from having a life because of these children. And now you want to say, oh, those kids are hurting you or are doing something not nice. They wouldn't want to hear of it. Or their son dares to complain about you, they're automatically going to hate you. Why? Because how dare you? My son, my life, the one I've lived for, that is it. I saw a post, I searched my phone, I searched my notification to see if I can get the comment, but I couldn't. And the post was about, husband not treating their wives well. And the lady said she knows that she has no marriage. She is just raising her kids because she knows that at the end of the day, she would be living in her son's house. So her son is her only hope. I had to reply because no, there is no way I'm going to let that kind of mindset fly. Don't just stay. It's okay to remain in toxic marriage. I mean, it's not okay, but if you have chosen to stay in toxic marriage for your children's sake, fine, stay. It's your choice, okay? But build yourself while you are staying so that when these children grow, you can let them grow and live their life. Build a life for yourself so that if eventually you will want to leave your husband's house, you don't pack and move to your son's house. Pack and move to a house you've built. That lady should be in her late 20s or early 30s. If you already have that mindset now of, oh, you're just staying in this marriage for your kids, you're eventually going to stay in your son's house. So where will his wife stay? Where will she stay? And the thing is not actually a bad thing that you would want to stay with your son. Is the fact that you do not have a right mindset. You did not have a good experience with marriage. So should you move into your son's house, it's very likely that you're going to be a problem to that house. Yes. Why? Because assuming your son is trying in his own capacity, in his own rights, to do better for his wife than his father did for you, you're somehow not going to see that with that, oh, my son is trying to be a better man than his father was. What you're going to see is, oh, this man wants to turn my son to Momo. My son is worshiping her. My son is doing this for her. You're not going to see it as the basic thing that a man should do for his wife. Why? Because you didn't enjoy it. It was too much of a luxury for you to afford in your own marriage. So now you would kind of feel a certain way if your daughter-in-law is enjoying what you never enjoyed. So yes, having a toxic marital experience increases your likelihood of becoming a terrible mother-in-law tomorrow. And in this terrible experience also come single mothers. It's together, it's a point together. Yes. If you're a single mother and because you have suffered so much, your baby daddy wasn't there, he left the kids or the child for you, you tend to, build that same entitlement spirit in yourself that you think, oh, this is the boy I've known all my life. He is the one I've labored for. He is the one I've basically lived for. And so you want to be in every area of his life, control everything. And there is going to also be this whole thing of, I know what is good for you. I raised you all these years, da 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 da. So when he even brings a woman, you start to want to pick fault in the woman because I'm the one who knows what's good for you. Assuming he ends up with that woman, she cannot enjoy that marriage. The third sign that you probably turn out to be a bad mother-in-law in future is if you are unhealthily possessive of your kids. You are unhealthily possessive of your kids. Every mother is naturally possessive of their children, but some people's own very unhealthy, very unhealthy. Even when you see, for example, you see your child and another child having issues, you don't want to know what happened. Why is that child? Automatically you go against the other child because the only thing that matters in this world is your child. Every other people's children are stones. So if you're that kind of person who see only your child as child and other people's own as non-living thing, then you have a very great chance of becoming a terrible mother-in-law. Because that's when you start to see only what is done against your child, your son, in very many cases, but not what your child is doing to the other person. So, which of these three are you already guilty of? So let's all look inward. And this is a call to myself first before anyone watching. Let's look inward and let's be honest with ourselves. Basically, if your mother-in-law does it to you and you wouldn't like it, you should just know not to do it to anyone else. If your sister-in-law does it to you or shares that opinion or behaves that way, you just know you wouldn't like it, you should just know not to do it to another person. It shouldn't be rocket science, but unfortunately, it's only bad when it's done to us, but justifiable when we are doing it to others. No, no, women, we can do better, especially if you have a son. If you have a son, let's do better.